In this episode, we go from this to this. Coming right up. Welcome back, everyone. Today we're taking a look at a product called XTC 3D. It is an epoxy product from Smooth On, and it is used specifically, or rather it was designed specifically to smooth out the print lines from 3D printed objects. So today we're gonna take this base for a Iron Man diorama that I'm building, and we're gonna apply some XTC 3D and see how smooth we can get it. Okay, so first off, we're starting with the 3D printed parts. This base is made out of 4 parts. Each one were printed on my Ender 3. Each print took about 26 hours to print each. So a lot of printing. So like basically a whole week of printing just these parts. I did experience some oozing on my extruder. So towards the end, I started getting some imperfections, which unfortunately, they're just gonna have to be a part of the print because I don't have time or want to waste the filament to reprint these parts. So to hold them together, I'm just gonna use some super glue from Bob Smith Industries. I got this from Hobbytown, but you can also get it from Hobby Lobby or pretty much any other hobby store. They're all the same. Sometimes they'll just be rebranded. I'm also using some activator to make the parts set instantly. And at first I was tempted to brush on the glue. I saw that in a video. I think it's just an old bottle of glue. I need to get some new. Eventually I went back to using the applicator tip because it was just easier. Okay, now I'm ready to mix up the epoxy. Got my tools ready. You need a mixing cup, popsicle sticks, and a foam brush. And here's the product itself. It's called XTC 3D. It is a coat of epoxy that you brush onto the part or the print. It is a self-leveling product, so it smooths itself out once you apply it. I'm gonna use a little black resin dye, just to make it easier to see where I've put the epoxy on. I'm gonna paint over it so the color of the epoxy doesn't really matter all that much to me. But you can add fillers to it. So if you want to add like metallic dust or tint it a certain color to be the final product, you can do that. You can also sand this stuff, which you kind of have to do if you're going to paint over it to get the paint to stick. But it's a 2-part epoxy. Obviously you go with instructions on how to mix it, but I think it's a 2-to-1 application by volume. So this is where these little graduated cups come in handy. I'm just gonna measure. I think I measured 14. No, I think I went 15 total millimeters. So 10 for part A and 5 for part B. And then added the dye. And then also I spread it out before I brush it on because it has a 15-minute working life. But if you spread it out and make it, the thinner the material, because it's endothermic, the thinner the material, the longer it takes to actually cure and set up. So spreading it out like this gives you more time to work with it. And this little batch I made is not going to be enough for the whole thing. I'm gonna have to mix up a couple batches and several coats of the stuff to get it to the point where I'm happy with it.
We can shine in a crowd, we never hesitate. Let us rise to the cloud.
Alright, now I'm back the next day. I let it sit 24 hours, let the first layer cure. You see it does cure glossy, and I'm just making note of all the areas that I missed on the first coat, and I'm gonna make sure I get those areas first when I go over the second coat. So I'm mixing up some more material, again dyeing it. I could have went with a second color, a different color, to differentiate between the layers, but I just went with the same, even it out. So basically repeating the same process by brushing it onto it. And also note for using this stuff, it does pool. So if you like on this part, the little cylinders on top, they have a little lip. Just imagine like if you poured water on it, the water would pool in the bottom of the cylinder. This stuff does the same. So after you brush it on, go back later in a few minutes and remove the excess and spread it out. It will eventually get tacky and stop spreading out, but when you first put it on, like I just did, you just want to make sure you keep going over the areas like that to make sure you don't get any pool, because it will harden if you don't get it out, and you'll lose that detail. Which is another thing about this product is while it does fill in layers pretty good, you do tend to lose a bit of detail with it. So maybe not use this on something you need really good detail with, but if it's something like this where it's like a base, you don't need detail, need it to be super detailed, then, or if it's really smooth and you just want to be smooth like a helmet, and this stuff is really good for that.
Let us detonate tonight.
Now I'm flipping over the part and getting access to the bottom of it, because you know I brushed from the top down on the first two coats, but when you flip it over, the overhangs, some of the overhangs I missed because I couldn't get to them from that orientation. So I'm flipping it over to brush on that, and also looking to see if I need more touch up done on the top side. But for now, I'm just go ahead and apply some epoxy to the underside of, and get all the areas I missed on the bottom of the underhangs or overhangs.
You make it real, you're the one I want.
Now I'm going back with a little small brush to do some detail work, fill in little pockets or little hard to reach areas where my foam brush couldn't reach to. I recommend doing this if you're working on a project like this where you have a lot of little hard to reach nooks and crannies. Having a little brush like this helps. These are disposable brushes I got at Walmart. They're really cheap. Don't buy good brushes for this. just use cheap throwaway brushes, because you will be throwing this stuff away. It does not clean off the brushes. Now I'm prepping it for paint. I got a Dremel with a sanding buff attached, and I'm just going through roughing up as much of the areas I can get to, because when it's super glossy, I found that paint doesn't like to stick well and you get this little cracking effect. But now I'm just going over with some primer. I'll go over it later with detail paint when I get to that stage. But for right now, I'm just giving it a primer. I'm gonna let it dry, see which areas need more attention. All right, now we're back the next day after the paint's dried, and I can already see some of the areas where I couldn't get to with the sanding. The paint has started to separate and not stick. So you see these little fracture lines in the paint. That's what I was talking about. The paint doesn't like to stick to it. It has this effect where it kind of like breaks up, kind of like dried earth, if you know what I'm talking about. But you see the little lines where you see the black color from the epoxy shining through. So for those areas, I'm gonna have to go over, maybe sand them some more and go over it some more paint to get the paint to stick before I can go over with the final base coat colors. But that's a actual example of what happens, why this stuff, if you don't sand it, why it's hard to paint. But it's not impossible. It is made for painting. You just got to put a little more work into it. But you can also see how smooth the part is. Like for the most part, the print lines are gone, except for areas where I didn't put as much epoxy on. And for something that's a base, a background piece like this, perfectly acceptable. And here's the model. The model is printed in resin on the Elegomars. It's not finished painted either, but I'm just sitting on so you can see what the end result, how this piece is going to factor into the final product. And there we have it. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, comments, leave them in the comment section. I'll try to answer them. And also let me know what you'd like to see in the future. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and hit the notification button to see when I post new episodes.